Welcome back to the UNF Leadership Podcast. After a short hiatus, we're excited to bring you a summer's worth of conversations with some of our favorite leaders in the world of leadership. On today's episode, longtime friend of the Taylor Leadership Institute, Jon Gordon. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance you've read one of Jon's 30-plus books, from The Energy Bus to The 7 Commitments of a Great Team to his newest and upcoming book, The Power of Positive Habits. If you haven't read them, we encourage you to visit jongordon.com to learn more. Our discussion with Jon today is specific to his work with professional sports teams, including the local Jacksonville Jaguars, on identifying and building culture. Whether you're a sports fan or not, this conversation with Jon is sure to have you ready to rally your team wherever they may be. This is Voices of Leadership, Jon Gordon. Things first, Jon, this is obviously going to be a little bit of a unique interview because obviously we are going to be launching this as part of our UNF Leadership Podcast. That's where this interview is going to live. But at the same time, we are going to dive a little bit into bit of a case study with the hometown Jacksonville Jaguars. So a lot of crossover with my various jobs. And obviously we appreciate you supporting UNF and our Taylor Leadership Institute. So let's start with this. For those of our students who are going to be listening to this podcast who may not know who you are, in your own words, who is Jon Gordon?
In my own words, hard to describe myself. I would say I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. And I work with many of the greatest leaders on the planet, both in business and also in sports, to help them develop their own leadership to be the best version of themselves and also to build stronger teams. I love to do that. But at the core of who I am, I just want to help people get better.
Yeah. And so you said it. Now you find yourself where you started 20 some odd years ago to where you are now, not just helping any team, helping some of the biggest professional sports franchises in the world and helping them become a better team. And so when did you first start consulting with some of these professional teams in the NFL and even in the college ranks as well?
Yeah, it happened in 2007. I had just written The Energy Bus and I was speaking to a group of realtors. And one of the realtors happened to be Mike Smith's real estate agent. And he was the defensive coordinator for the Jaguars at the time. And she said, Mike, you should have this guy, Jon Gordon, speak to your team. And Mike said, who's Jon Gordon? And she said, he's a speaker. And he said, how is a real estate speaker going to help me and my Jaguars? And she said, no, he's like a motivating kind of guy. He said, I don't know. I'm not the head coach. Maybe I'll talk to Jack. We'll see. Well, the next day he was talking to Mike Ryan, who was the athletic trainer for the Jaguars at the time, and a friend of mine. And he said, hey, you know anything about this Jon Gordon guy? And Mike Ryan said, yeah, here's his new book, and gave him a copy of The Energy Bus. Mike Smith read the book, loved it, gave it to Jack Del Rio. He read it and then reached out to me and invited me to come speak to him at the facility, just to meet with him. And we were just talking about leadership, talking about the book. He told me how the book really impacted him as a leader. And again, this was a new book that I had just written. I went on a 28-city book tour that wasn't very successful. I got back. I didn't know what my future held. I didn't even know if anyone was going to read this book. And now Jack Del Rio is telling me this book really deeply impacted him as a leader. He said the energy vampires often get him down. And I taught him that you have to be more positive than the negativity that you face. And so after our conversation, he asked me to speak to the team. I said I would. I said, but I want you to get everyone a copy of the book. He said, I'll do it better than that. I'll get everyone in the organization a copy of the book because I want to impact everyone who interacts with the players. I want them to share positive energy with the players. And after that, it was this amazing season. Mike Smith became the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. He brought me to the Falcons. We did the same thing. And then after that, I just started working with all these coaches, all of these teams and all these organizations because one realtor told Mike Smith about this talk that I had given. It's incredible how I didn't seek this out. It just came my way. And now I'm reading this, I'm wearing this training camp shirt. And now I have an event called Training Camp where all these leaders from all these teams come in and talk to the business leaders from around the world. It's wild when you think about it.
And you have the book Training Camp seated behind you on your screen. And that's another book that you've now authored since 2007. And for me, anecdotally, Jon, and we talked about this a little bit when we saw each other last, it's crazy for me because in 2007, I'm a high school kid in New Jersey. And that's around the time my mom had me read The Energy Bus. But now, having covered the Jacksonville Jaguars for the last 7 years, in addition to working with Dr. Olson at UNF for the last 5, let me get this straight. So 2007, the Jags go to the second round of the playoffs after you speak to them. And then 2008, Mike Smith's first year with the Atlanta Falcons. That is a team that also overperformed, won 11 games in his first season. And then you work with Liam Cohen in 2025, and that team also wins 13 games and goes to the postseason. So I'm not saying that some of the best seasons in Jacksonville history are because of one of our own, but I am just going to throw that out there. Just food for thought.
I'll say I'm a good luck charm because Sean McVay also took over a team that was 4-12, went 11-5. The Atlanta Falcons were 4-12, and Mike Smith turned them around to 11-5 after we did the Energy Bus. And so many other teams and organizations, Dave Roberts and the LA Dodgers, watched him win a World Series, watched the Miami Heat have incredible success with Eric Spoelstra. So I've seen firsthand these leaders have success. But yeah, I definitely know I'm not the reason. I really believe that I bring a great framework to these leaders that they can lead with, a great languaging tool they can use to overcome negativity, great tools and strategies that build more connection and commitment. Like with the Jaguars this year, we did the 7 commitments of a great team. And that was my talk to the team. Like, how do we become truly committed to each other and to the mission and to the program and to the city? And we talked all about it. And obviously they had an incredible year. So I think it's just about these like simple concepts that are powerful if you implement them. And then you watch a great coach. You need a great leader to do this, because I've spoken to some teams and it doesn't work. And I've really figured out that it's not me, it's actually the leader. And when you have a great leader, the leader is able to use my tools to transform the team.
And that framework is part of why we're here talking today. So it starts with the Energy Bus with you and Jack Del Rio and Mike Smith once upon a time. Now it's 7 commitments of a great team, but I'm sure it's on a case-by-case basis. So walk us through the process. Does the coach approach you? Do you and the coach sit down first? How do we go from, hey, maybe Jon Gordon would be a great speaker for us, to, hey, we're actually going to implement what he and I have sat down and mapped out as a core team value, if not our framework for the upcoming season?
Yeah, I forgot to mention Mike McDonald. I worked with Mike McDonald when he took over the job with the Seahawks and watched him have some obviously incredible success this year. Last year was a building year, and then this year obviously took it to a whole other level. So I wrote a book called Training Camp, as you mentioned, and I wrote that a couple years after the Energy Bus. And that was written after visiting the Atlanta Falcons facility, speaking to the team the first year. And as I'm leaving, they had a car and a driver take me to the airport. I'm in the back seat, and I thought, wow, that went really well. I just did a talk on the Energy Bus. Let's see what happens. Matt Ryan was a rookie quarterback. That's how long ago it was. And I had this idea of a coach who impacts a player and the bond they have, but also the lessons the coach teaches the player. And in my mind, the words training camp came to me. I'm like, I'm going to write a book called Training Camp. And I love this book. It's about the 11 winning habits and characteristics that separate the best from the rest. It's about a player that has to overcome his fear to find his faith to be all that he's meant to be. So many coaches and teams over the years have read that book as well. And I believe that's my favorite book that I've written. I just love that book. I love that story. Actually, the main character in it, Martin Jones, was inspired by Maurice Jones-Drew, a Jaguars legend. Cool story there. I had him in mind when I wrote the book because I watched him play that first preseason for the Jaguars, and he was just unbelievable. Just watching him, the way he was able to just the way he was able to run, the touchdowns, the speed. I was like, this guy's going to be a great player. Like I had this thought, this guy's going to be great. Watch him have a great year. And I remember writing this book about an undrafted rookie trying to make in the NFL. And so he inspired it. Well, years later, I'm at the Jaguars practice, just hanging out, and there he is. And he said, I just want you to know, I really love your book, Training Camp. I said, well, that's awesome. I said, actually, you inspired the running back. He's like, really? I'm like, yep. He goes, where's my royalties? I said, well, it wasn't based on you, but it was inspired by you. So no royalties for you. But he did inspire that, which was really cool. And so, yeah, Training Camp's definitely my favorite book. So what happens often is the coach will read my book, or a player will read it and recommend it to the coach, or the coach will get a job. And now what's happening is they'll call up and they'll want to talk about what kind of program they want to build and their culture. And so we'll either meet in person or talk on the phone, and we'll talk about their culture. We'll talk about their values. We'll talk about what kind of team they want to create. What's the essence of that team? And I have a process for that. I have a process that I've developed over the years that I know works, and just some of my own unique ideas on culture as well. Like, for instance, when you think about your culture and you're trying to figure out your core values, you ask yourself, what kind of players do I want to bring on this team? What are their characteristics? And once you understand their characteristics and you know what kind of players you want to bring on your team, those characteristics are actually your core values, because they should be one and the same. It's a culture hack. And every company could do this as well.
Yep.
Every business can do this to say, okay, what's our core values? Well, what do we want to see in the people that work for us? What are the characteristics of the people we want to hire? They should be actually one and the same, because the people you hire should be reflective and embody those core values. So it makes so much sense, and it's a real easy thing to think about. Now, I didn't come up with that until actually this year with Liam Cohen and the Jaguars, and us meeting and talking about this. And it came to me very quickly as I was thinking about, how do I help him create his core values? Now, when I met with Sean, we talked about what matters to him and the essence of who he is as a leader. What are those core values that he leads by? Because you want those core values, you want those characteristics to be something that is very natural for you. You want the culture to be a reflection of you as the leader. This goes for any company, business, organization, sports team. Because if it's not going to be authentic, it's not going to be real, and you can't live it and breathe it every day, well, guess what? It's not going to last, and it's not going to work, and it's not going to come to life in the people and in the culture and the behaviors and the values of the organization. So first and foremost, what are you all about? Who are you? So I like to get very clear with the leader on that, help understand that. And I start to really help that leader put together those core values of what program they want to build, what do they want to create, what is their vision and mission, and we talk about that. And then a lot of times the coach will then say, hey, can you help me share this with my coaching staff? And will you talk to the team as well, and just bring 7 commitments of a great team, or it used to be 4 stages of greatness, or the power of a positive team is a book I wrote that a lot of teams have used. Or if we want to talk about leadership, the power of positive leadership, or my newest book, the power of positive habits. I've been talking about habits that will make you and your team great. So whatever it is, it's a talk that I'll give to the team, and I've talked to so many teams now over the years that I really know it resonates. But I like to understand what their challenges are, what season they're in terms of their journey. The Jaguars were obviously in a very unique situation, right? A coach leaves, is fired, a new coach is coming in, building his culture. It's very different than a coach in year 3 saying, hey, I want to bring a new energy to this team. So you have to see where they are, what the messaging needs to be. What does that team truly, truly need to hear? And that's what I then formulate as I go speak to that team. And then the coach and I sometimes will formulate a relationship, an agreement where I coach that coach during the year, I consult with that coach, and that all depends as well. I like to be so good up front, and so good with the team that they don't need me the rest of the year, because they're basically embodying the principles and the practices, and they're reinforced. If they could do that, they really don't need me.
And to your point, and I'm curious your response to this, you've worked with some first-year coaches as well as sometimes some non-first-year coaches. And I would think that it helps when you are spending so much time with them leading into that first year to really set the ground rules and the expectations right away.
I would say that's where I'm at my best, when I'm working with a Mike McDonald first year, Liam Cohen first year, Mike Smith first year. Jack Del Rio was not first year. Eric Spoelstra, not first year. But Sean McVay, first year. Kevin O'Connell, first year. So different coaches, usually it works best when they're just starting out. Right. But if a coach is struggling or wants to get better, Mark Richt, University of Georgia. I went there and Mark was really looking for something. He was trying to find the answer. They were really struggling and he was on the hot seat, and he found the energy bus from Mike Smith. This was 2010, I believe.
Okay.
And I went to go work with Margaret. That was the year they lost the first two games. One was to Boise State. They wound up making the SEC championship game, and they lost to LSU, I believe, in the SEC championship. But they won the next 10 games in a row. And working with Mark and that team, he was looking for something, and this was the perfect match. So it's always different. It's always unique. Mac Brown years ago brought me to Texas right after working with the Falcons that year. Next thing I know, Muschamp and Mac Brown were there, and I went to speak to Texas when Colt McCoy was a senior and worked with that team. That was the first college program I'd actually worked with, was Texas. So Texas was my first love in that regard. And then it was Georgia, and then it was Dabo Swinney and Clemson. Mm-hmm. And now I've worked with Clemson for the past 13 years every year. And so that relationship looks like with Dabo, I always speak during training camp, and then sometimes during the year I'll speak. During the year, I spoke to them before the Florida State game at Florida State when they won the national championship that year. Spoke to them before South Carolina when Deshaun Watson and the team won for the first time in like 5 or 6 years. I spoke to Army a number of years when they were getting killed by Navy, and then finally turning around and won against Navy, against the Army Navy game. I went to that game. But with Dabo Swinney, I'll do that one other game during the year a lot of times, and then we'll just also talk and text and just have a great relationship and friendship.
So I think what caught the attention of many, and knowing personally just in research and hearing from folks in LA, the acronyms that these coaches, especially in the NFL, have developed, whether it's FAST out with the Rams, cleats here with Liam, was that something that was part of your framework, or did the coach come to find that acronym on his own?
It's always different. You know, I help the coaches a lot of times create frameworks, and like Sean wanted to create a pyramid like Jon Wooden because he loved Jon Wooden. So he created his own pyramid, a scaled down pyramid, a smaller pyramid that contained his core values. And we talked about we, not me, as being one of them. And that became a really big core value. Sitting down with Mike McDonald, talking about 12 as one. And he told me that. And when he said it, I thought, I love that. That is huge right there. Like, you can identify what's going to be big and what's going to really resonate. And I'm a book writer. I know titles. I know what people are going to read, what they're going to gravitate towards, what they're going to resonate with from a messaging standpoint. And so a lot of it is marketing. Like, what kind of marketing messaging are you sharing with your team, with the community at large? So a lot of times I'll come up with the framework, or I'll help them come up with it. Or like with Sean, a recent one has been Heart, that he came up with, I think, a few years ago, but that was him on his own coming up with Heart for his culture. So it's fun. Like, it's fun to hear other people's frameworks. It's fun to help them create their own frameworks. I'm not the only one who does this. So it's fun to hear different ones. And when I hear someone's framework, if it's a good one, I'm like, oh, I like that. Like, I wish I came up with that one. That's a great one. But Cleats, Cleats was one that Liam and I, through our brainstorming session and our culture, core values building session, came up with Cleats. And that was honestly one of the coolest moments of my life, I have to say. Like, one of the best moments I've ever had doing this work for over 20 years now was the day that we came up with FAST Cleats. It was so magical, so powerful. It was really divine. I'm a man of faith. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, the Holy Spirit filled the room as we were coming up with this. And the way it transpired, I was like, there's no other answer but the Holy Spirit of how this happened.
And part of that, I'm sure, is because FAST was Sean's acronym that he used with the Rams, where Liam, of course, was an assistant coach. And so I know you guys talked about this on a previous episode of the Jon Gordon podcast, but you knew there were a couple words that there was going to be that cross-pollination, and then the others just came to fruition?
What happened was we started with FAST because Liam said, this is our style of play on the field. Mm-hmm. And so it's fundamentally sound, attacking, situationally smart, and then tough, tough-minded players, tough physically. And then he was thinking about, okay, what do I want my program to be about? What's our culture all about? And I said, yeah, it should be different. can't be fast. But we had fast. I said, well, let's start thinking about what you want to build and what you want to create. Let's talk about the essence of who you are. What are the characteristics you want in your players? He's like, well, I want guys who love football. Okay, we had L. I love football. By the way, I didn't know this was going to be an acronym. First off, it wasn't trying to create an acronym at all. It was like, let's just create.
Just write words down. Just write words down, and we'll see what we can do.
That's the cool thing. It wasn't even trying to be an acronym. It was actually, he just told me fast. And I'm thinking, okay, let's, I really quickly forgot about fast. And now I was thinking about, all right, let's help you build this out. And he said, I want guys with energy. It's all about energy. And then he said, I want guys who are tough, because he brought that over from fast, and situationally smart. So we had the LETS, LETS. So right there, I was looking at the letters like, oh, this spells let's. Okay. I said, we can go with that. How about let's dominate? Let's crush the competition. Let's be a Jaguar. Like, you can come up with so many things about let's and use that as your messaging. And we're sitting there. And this is what I mean when I say the Holy Spirit filled the room. It was just like, nah, there's more. Like, there was a feeling that there's more. There's something greater, something better. Because I think we were both feeling good about it, but I said, there's more to this. I said, I just wrote a book called The 7 Commitments of a Great Team. I said, do you want a commitment to be, one of the core values? He's like, oh yeah, I want committed guys. I want really committed guys. I'm like, okay, well, let's put C there. And then we were talking about the fact that he really became a great coach when he found his authentic self and really became himself in Tampa. Not trying to be like anyone else, just being him. And I said, you said earlier that you really became a great coach when you were authentic to who you were and you really found your voice that way. I said, do you want players who are authentic? He said, oh yeah, definitely. I said, okay. And I looked down and I had the A, and I'm like, no way. This spells cleats. I said, you realize this spells cleats? I'm like, no way. It was just so cool in that moment. And then we laughed because we thought fast cleats. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, do you realize how cool that is? That is something that's memorable. It's perfect for a football team to have fast cleats as your core values. Has never been something I've ever thought of that he thought of. And it really felt like this was divine, that, okay, like this team is going to move forward with fast cleats, and cleats is going to be a part of their framework. He goes, well, let me take it back to Tony and James and talk to them about it, see what they think. I said, yeah, great. I go, but I think it's special. But of course, obviously everyone has to like it. And he sent me back a message saying, yeah, they really liked it. And what's cool is now you see it all over the building, fast cleats. But what I love is that they also came up with on their own, be where your feet are. And I love that, because cleats, feet, where your feet are at the present moment, so powerful. And I go, wow, that's brilliant. Like, you just see it and you go, that's brilliant. And I just love the leadership over there. I love James. I love Tony. I mean, they're just incredible. Liam's the best. The way they are aligned together, just so great to watch. And just knowing that all the teams I work with over the years, when you have alignment with culture, and your leadership at the top is aligned with ownership and GM, and everyone is truly aligned, working in the same direction, it makes everything so much easier. And that's when you actually stay strong through the storms. And so watching these guys, it's been so great. But, being a part of this process was truly an honor. And also just to see a great coach like Liam then share it with the team and them embody it and embrace it. That's where the magic is. Anyone could come up with a bunch of words and you could put them on the walls, but it's that coach and that leader that really can drive it and get the people to buy into it. That's truly special. Writing about leadership is easy. Coaching as a leader and being a leader as a coach, that's challenging. That's hard.
So let's tie that with the bigger picture. So having a strong coach is paramount to having a successful team, whether it's an NFL franchise or a local business, or for any of our students who are running a student organization on UNF's campus. Having that strong coach or leader, having the alignment is critical. What is a couple other things that you have found through your nearly goodness, 20 years of working with these professional and college franchises. What are the things that no one talks about, but the best teams have this?
Yeah, a team that's not connected at the top will crumble at the bottom. So it's the strong leader, but it's also the leadership team. That leader has buy-in from their leadership team, and they are united and connected together, and they have the same agenda, the same focus. Because if they're not aligned, when there's issues with the players or in the company of, for instance, say a business that has several leaders, and when there's an issue, different people go to one leader, other people go to the other leader, then you're going to have issues. No different than parents with kids. If you are not aligned as parents, your kids will actually pit you against each other, and you will get weaker and more divided, and the family will crumble. It happens all the time. We got great advice when our kids were young and we were parents. You have to be aligned. You're the team. The kids are your players. They're your projects, and you have to work on the projects and the players, but you're the team. Like, your kids are not really on your team. When they get older, they'll be on your team, but they're not on your team right now. And as they got older, all right, then when you invite them to be on the team and you get their buy-in, but initially it's not going to be that way. So being that strong team, and most leaders in companies and organizations, they do not relentlessly focus on the culture. They do it one time, but they don't continually do it. And so often they get that wrong because they think, okay, we did it. We're good. We had some success. No, winning is a great deodorant, as John Madden said. It covers up what stinks about your team, right? I talked to the team about that in my talk. Winning is a great deodorant. It covers up what stinks about your team. You might be winning, but you're not seeing all of the little issues that need to be developed and improved because you're so happy you're winning. And if you don't address those things, eventually what stinks will actually wind up hurting you and your team and your organization. So you have to address that. Also, the idea that teams are always continually striving to get better. You have to have great coaches and great leaders that are developing people. Like, pro athletes are not finished projects. So many of them are just developing as people themselves. We don't realize that. So wherever they are on their journey, whether they're a veteran or a younger player, they can still learn, they can still improve, they can still grow, and they need leadership to develop them. So coaches can't think, well, and GMs, we drafted this guy, then we brought him in, free agent. Why aren't they doing this? No, you got to develop them and continue to coach them and lead them to be who they need to be and grow into the person they can be. And I think that's essential for leadership. And then the biggest mistake is we don't address the negativity that exists on our teams. So the negativity eventually will sabotage the team and the organization. And too many coaches allow that. Too many leaders in their companies allow that. They don't address it. They don't want to deal with it. And eventually that negativity will bite you in the you-know-what, and it will sabotage you. So you have to make sure you're addressing the negativity. And the other key piece is don't look outside, look inside. Biggest mistake that too many leaders make is they start looking at what the fans are saying and thinking. They look at what everyone else is thinking instead of what matters most inside the building, inside the locker room, inside themselves, inside out. That's what I love about Liam. He is so inside out, and the best coaches are that way. If you had to say, John, what's the key? How can you tell if someone's going to make it in this league or be successful in college or be a successful coach? Are they an inside-out coach? Do they focus on the inside, not the outside? Are they convicted in their beliefs? Do they know what they're building? Can they build relationships with the people that they're leading? Are they authentic? Authentic to the point where people want to follow them, want to listen to them, and actually trust them and believe in them. And if you get that authenticity, you get that trust, now you're on your way to building a great team.
So we're recording this podcast on Tuesday, March 31st. The NFL owners meetings are going on in Phoenix. John, did you see the quote that came out about Liam referencing the stink?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to read it to you in light of what you just said, because I think you will appreciate this. And so he was interviewed by Ryan O'Halloran of the Florida Times Union on Monday. And Ryan says this is a new Cohenism. Quote from Liam: "Where is the stink that was covered up by winning? And how do we improve the stink and get better as a football team?" To which Ryan says, "The run game." And Liam goes, 100%. That's the stink right now.
I love that. That's so cool. That's That's a sign of a great coach, a great leader, taking a concept and making it their own, and then using that concept to really explain their culture, explain their direction, explain how they do things. I love that. That's really cool. I love the way you said it. Again, that's just pure brilliance right there.
So 2 more questions. We'll wrap on the Jaguars case study, if you may, before we go wrap with you. But tell me this, as someone who's lived in Jacksonville for 20 some odd years, why is this group primed for, as of right now, it looks by all accounts, this is sustainable. Why is this the group that this is going to finally be the one that creates a sustained success for the first time since Tom Coughlin in the 90s?
Because you have Tony Baselli now in a really strong leadership position. And Tony Baselli gets it. He is an incredible leader. And I've known Tony all these years, and I did not know he was the kind of leader that he is. When we've been talking, and as I started to work with Liam and talking with Tony, I was blown away of the questions he was asking, because, I've done this a long time. As I said, I've worked with the top leaders in Fortune 500 companies, in the best organizations in the world. Evan Spiegel of Snapchat, Alan Mullally, Ford and Boeing. We're talking the top leaders. And when Tony is asking the questions he's asking and thinking about the things he's thinking about, way ahead of before he should be thinking about them, and already having the foresight, I said, wow, they're in great hands. And Tony is a smart guy. I was saying it to myself, wow, this guy's really smart. He gets it. And plus, he's a strong force, and he's a great support for Liam, as Liam talked about on my podcast. He talked about how Tony was there for him and supporting him. So he's like a big brother, which I just love. So I think the alignment is great. Liam, you got Tony, you got James, you got Shad supporting them. I believe that's why we're in good shape. Then you see Trevor Lawrence. We're in good shape because we have a quarterback who's playing at a very high level and can play at a very high level. You're only as good in the NFL as the quarterback that you have. I mean, you can win some games with defense, but ultimately you want to win a lot of games. You're going to need a quarterback that can win those games. And so you got Trevor, which is great. You got a coaching staff like Grant, and you got the awesome defensive coordinator. Those guys are awesome. And again, these were just really young coaches brought in that were improving. And now people are like, wow, these guys are really smart. You got Liam, who's just an incredible coach who gets it, and a great offensive mind, really foundational in his principles. He's got the great combination of love, tough. He loves you, but he's going to hold you accountable. So you got a great leader there. Again, all the characteristics I've seen in the best organizations, you now see that. And then you get a city that's excited about these Jaguars. And I'm, as a hometown resident, I lost it a little bit there because, I'd worked with the Jaguars with Jack, loved Gus Bradley, great guy, right? Just couldn't get it going, but really good. Dave Caldwell, great guy. They, really great guy. They just didn't have a lot of success, but they were building something. If you look back, they were building something towards the future, and it happened. It happened the year after they left, because what they were building towards was a team that went to the playoffs with Blake Bortles, right? And had a great run there. So they were building something, and did a great job. With Urban Meyer, I asked Dabo, I said, hey, tell Urban I would love to help the team. I'm right here. I live in town, and I'd love to help. And he asked Urban, and Urban was like, yeah, we're good. We're good. Totally blew me off. Not interested. And I'm like, okay, Urban, whatever. And Dabo goes like this. That was like, he shrugs. He's like, it's not like we haven't won 2 national championships. Like you've helped us all these years. You would think he'd but he goes,
you're not the only one that this probably happened to.
That's okay. And then Doug Peterson, I got a chance to speak at a chapel service for the Jags, but not getting the chance to work with the team. So when Liam reached out, because he knew I worked with Sean and the other coaches over the years, he reached out. I was like really honored and excited about it, because I love this team and I want to help my team win. And I want to help them be their best. And I know that I can. So it's been a great joy to actually, get back into the fold and work with them. And then to see them have their success. They've got all the right pieces. They got the leadership. They got the connection. Here's going to be the key when you look forward. They can't allow last year to define this year. They got to step into it and focus on the present moment and the now. And they've got to make sure that when they have perhaps a few losses and things don't go as planned, how do they come back? How do they focus? How do they not allow the outside noise to keep them from continually moving forward? The way they responded with the Texans last year after that loss to find their season. Well, it's going to be something else this year. And it might be 2 losses, 3 losses. It's never the same. And so stuff happens. So how do we weather that storm and continue moving forward? Sean McVay did not have a great year after winning the Super Bowl. And he talked about that on my training camp event. You're going to have seasons like that. How do you weather the storm? Because next year came back better the year after that. You're building a culture, a program, a team. Sam Presti said it best. Sam Presti's a friend of mine. He's the GM of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And he told me, we're building a team and a culture that every year that gives us the best shot to win it. It doesn't mean we're always going to win it, but we're continually building one to create the best shot to win it. And I think if you have that approach, that builds a sustained organization, sustained success.
Last question, and I'm going to tie in Sam Presti, now hearing his name in the NBA, knowing you also worked with Miami Heat as well. And certainly we can look to the business world. We can look to building teams on a college campus, Jon. This idea of, especially in the NFL, since we are approaching draft season, of I need to go find a guy that's 6'6" and he's got 10-inch hands and 35-inch arm length. But then on the flip side, you look at some of the most successful organizations, i.e. the Rams, where they're taking undersized defensive tackles. They're taking 6th or 7th year seniors who maybe someone else wrote them off because they ran a 4.7 40-yard dash. For you, in the talent evaluation process, as anyone is building a team, what do you need? What are the essential characteristics, and maybe how you've seen that in some of the best professional teams?
Yeah, I'm looking not just for talent, but you do have to have talent. So talent is important. You got to have a baseline of talent. If you don't have the talent, then you're not even in the game. You're not even on the board. So you have to have a level of talent. But then I am really looking at, does this person love football? I love Liam's focus on loving football. Do they love the game? Do they want to play the game? Would they play the game if they weren't getting paid for it? You want a person who loves the game, loves playing, and is not playing for the contract. They're playing because they love playing football or they love basketball. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for someone who is inside out, that they're a coffee bean, a book I wrote with Damon West, that you believe that you can impact your situation. You can transform your environment. You're not a victim of your environment. You can transform your environment. So I'm looking at someone who believes that they have the power within them to impact the team, impact the organization, impact the future. I want someone who is a coffee bean. So I'm looking for that. I'm also looking for culture fit. Does this person fit our culture? Do they have the characteristics that we're looking for? So culture fit is extremely important. And I'm looking for attitude. Like, how does this person overcome challenges, adversity? Are they moody? Are they an energy vampire? Are they a complainer? How does this person impact the people around me? And I'm looking for transformational teammates, people who are performing at the highest level. And once they're performing at a higher level, and while they're performing at a higher level, they're actually making the people around them better. So they're performing themselves at a high level and making everyone around them better in the process. So you want transformational teammates. You look at, you look at the players in the Jaguars who did that. Who's the receiver that came onto the team during the season?
Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, Jacoby, like the law firm of Jacoby and Myers, right?
Yes.
Jacoby Myers. Right. Of course I know his name, but I wanted the world to hear that name. Like, yes. you hear that and you go, okay, this guy made everyone around him better. He made the team better. And
he's very quiet, by the way.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm so excited to read your next book with the habits, because Jacoby, for me, seeing him every day in that locker room, he personifies that. He's not brash and telling you, in your face. He just does all the little things every day and encourages everyone else to do the little things.
Yeah, and that's Puka, right, in the Rams. Like, he's that receiver who makes everyone around him better. Cooper Kupp did the same thing, makes everyone around him better. quarterbacks who make everyone around them better. Like, so you want people like that. So if I'm building a team, I'm looking for people who are transformational on the field and off the field, and they impact the locker room too. Because I wrote a book, You Win in the Locker Room First. I wrote it with Mike Smith, and we wrote that book about the 7 C's to building a great team. That's where it starts. Liam Cohen actually said that in my interview of him on my podcast. He goes, "You win in the locker room first, Jon." And I laughed, and people don't know why I laughed. And I laughed because he was using my own book as a reference point to, you have to win the locker room with the right guys.
Absolutely. Well, Jon, thank you so much for your time today. Before we get out of here, this podcast is going to be published here in the next few weeks. And so I think it may end up being around the time of training camp. So I think signups will have passed. But for those who may be unfamiliar with training camp, some of the other work coming out, if you want to share that with the audience.
Yeah, sure. Well, first and foremost, check out my book, thepowerofpositivehabits.com, right? It's actually, powerofpositivehabitsbook.com. And if you go to jongordon.com, you'll find it there as well. JONGordon.com. There's a new book on habits that will elevate you. There's 93 habits. There are mindset habits. There are health habits, leadership habits, career habits. You do these habits, even just a few of them, you'll see incredible transformation and an elevation of yourself mentally, physically, relationally. So it will really impact you in a big way. And that's why I wrote this book. It's been proven by the last 20 years of working with all these athletes and coaches and successful people. That's in this book. So check out the Power of Positive Habits book. And then also our training camp event. Yeah, that's happening May 1st is the general session. And we got Sean McVay coming in. Liam Cohen is speaking. We got Tim Tebow. We got Kevin O'Connell, PJ Fleck, Matt LaFleur. We have a bunch of coaches coming in to speak. Benjamin Watson, Tony Dungy's now coming.
Nice.
So he's a new great addition. Buzz Williams, Coach McCollum, Ben McCollum from Iowa.
Say less, my people.
Yeah.
Yes, let's go.
He's coming in, and you know what? We booked him when no one knew who he was, and no one even thought Iowa had a shot. So we knew he was coming, and as they started winning, it was awesome. And guess who else is coming? Corey Close.
Oh, yes, our friend. I know, of course. Your episode and Joshua Metcalf's episode are actually going to come out around the same time. And of course, he also works closely with Coach Close in the UCLA program.
Oh, you interviewed Joshua as well?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I was just on his podcast and we were talking about Corey. So that's cool. I like Joshua a lot.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, so Corey's coming as well. And Corey's going to really talk about, again, she came last year and all the NFL coaches were like listening and leaning into her. Mm-hmm. They were like, we think she's the best coach in the room right here. Like, they were blown away by her, and it was awesome. So she's coming. It's going to be an incredible day of just of learning and camaraderie. The coaches coming together. The business leaders will be in the room. Only about 150 business leaders learning from the coaches. It's a very intimate environment. And we got Matthew West playing music. So I'm really excited about it.
Love it. And of course, if you can't make this year's, that certainly next year, I'm assuming there'll be another training camp.
We don't know the date yet, but every year I go, should I do it again next year? We'll see. This is our second year. So most likely people are going to make me do it because they'll like it so much. But yeah, most likely if the coaches are going to come, I'll do it. And we're raising money for the Tebow Foundation, the Tim Tebow Foundation. Yep. So we give a lot of money from the event to the Tim Tebow Foundation. So it's really for a great cause.
Absolutely. Well, I'm off to, speaking of those 93 habits, I'm going to go get my gratitude walk on. What do you think about that, Jon? That's my Lenten sacrifice. So
I'm going to do a dead arm hang, which is in the book as well. I'm going to do a dead arm hang and then some childlike squats. I'm doing those too.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. I may have to incorporate those into the post-Lent workout, since gratitude walk and abs are part of the current Lenten sacrifice, or doing something additional. But appreciate you taking some time to join us. And we look forward to seeing you very, very soon.
Thanks, Mia. You're doing a great job. Keep up the great work.
Thanks for listening to the UNF Leadership Podcast. For more episodes like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. This has been a presentation of the Taylor Leadership Institute at the University of North Florida. Swoop!